Alright. Hello, YouTube. Hello. Hey, guys. How's everybody doing today? Is doing well this Sunday? I believe it's Sunday. Yes, it's Sunday. Okay, good. I was just clarifying. Sometimes I genuinely don't know what day it is most of the week. But how's everybody doing? Hope everybody's doing fantastic today. In chat we got Gabriel Ekstrom. Welcome to the stream. Hello, Asmo. I got so excited when I read the title. I'm hoping for good news. I would consider this good news. I would hope so. Kalkil, what's up? Ahoy, mate. How you doing, Kalkil? How you doing, my boy? Are we doing well? It's a Sunday. It's one of those days. How are you? How y'all doing? Are you all doing fantastic? Fantastic indeed. Fantastic indeed. I'm gonna give the stream just a couple of seconds for a couple of minutes anyway for more people to seep in who wanna hear this news live. If not, they can hear it in the VOD. Hey, Carneth Corn, welcome to the stream. Welcome. Yeah, the stream is just gonna be broken down into two sections. We're just gonna have the Q&A section after I go over the update about Warglaive. The Warglaive update, it's a substantial news for those of you who know it's been on ice. For those of you who didn't hear about it being on ice, which I'm pretty sure I made a post about that. This will be good news. It'll be very good news. Hey, Tang, or Alex, whatever you prefer. Hey, how you doing? I'm watching Criminal Interrogations, having a blast. Nice. That's a great pastime. Kobold Productions, welcome to the stream. Welcome. How's everybody doing? You guys are doing fantastic. Alright. Just want to give it a good 3 minutes into the stream. I think that's a fair amount of time to let anybody who's interested hop on in for the news. James Mackin, welcome to the stream. Good to see you still working on it. Well, actually, this news is about that. Wait just one more minute. I think that's... Yeah, just one more minute, let anybody come in. If not, again, VOD. Alright. Good news incoming? Yeah, I'd say it's pretty good news. I'd hope you guys would agree, but we'll see. Alright, just 15 more seconds. Letting anybody join who wants to join for the news. Alright, we're 3 minutes in, so let's get started with. So I have 3 major bullet points about it's all about. Thank you to whoever subscribed. This news all pertains to the same point, I guess. The same general update. It has 3 points to it that I need to note. So the big news is Warglaive Gothic is now no longer on ice. That's the big part of it. I'm now working on it actively again. For those of you who didn't even know it was on ice, I'm sure that's news to you, but it has been on ice since around, unfortunately, since the end of September. The reason it has been on ice, for those who did not know, the reason it was on ice is simply the all-consuming issue of money. I ran out of money to afford the software which I used to 3D sculpt the minis, which you're seeing on in the little loop there. That's what I used to sculpt some of the minis, and then of course I also had another software I used to design and put together the more rigid armor structural pieces, which I would then import to ZBrush and do any extra sculpty bits to, like helmets, pauldrons, all those kinds of more static models were produced in another software called Maya, which is also an animation and 3D animation software and rigging software. Unfortunately, I couldn't afford that either anymore. Now that was not due to it was due to poor planning in the sense that I was trying to get a part-time job, at least a part-time job, around where I live. At the time, during the month, pretty much every month from, I want to say, June last year, all the way to about September, I was fighting to get a job in my local market local job market to help fund Warglaive, because, well, not putting blame on anybody here. I am also not trying to pressure anybody to support the project past their means, but the project wasn't getting supported enough on Patreon and through donations. As much as I greatly appreciated those the people who generously gave money towards the project in both categories, but unfortunately it's not enough to cover the expenses of Maya, which is $200 a month. It's not enough to cover ZBrush, which is $40 a month now. It wasn't enough to cover paying for the concept art, which was and the thing is, I was already getting the concept art pretty cheap, because Pyrrhus of Empress, also known as Jacob Jones, he's my main concept artist for Warglaive, and he's the one who really gave Warglaive Gothic its visual identity, and working with him has been a blast. But unfortunately, a decent piece, well, I say decent, an amazing art piece of like any of the art pieces I showed off in any of the Q&As or any of the previous streams. Each one of those bigger art pieces costs me around $210 or so, around that much, and that is cheap. That's for the work he does. He's not paid enough, and he was already taking a bit of a loss financially, so to help me out, and I greatly appreciated that sacrifice. So unfortunately, even with that, though, I couldn't continue to afford that, on top of not being able to afford ZBrush, as for not being able to afford Maya. Simply came down to lack of finances. What's changed about that now is, and I am technically counting my eggs before they hatch them, I have an interview with my old job with the Navy coming up on Tuesday. They are in need of designers. They're in need of people to work in 3D design the next generation of warships for the United States Navy, and they have struggled to get people hired back, so I took advantage of their job listing, and I'm getting an interview on Tuesday, and hopefully, if that goes according to plan, I will have my old job back, and I'll be making well over $22 an hour. Assuming that they don't give me a raise for whatever reason. I'm not counting on that, but I'm hoping to get my old pay back, which I should. And yeah, with that in said, I'll have spare money on the side again to be able to afford art pieces and concept art from Jacob / Pyrrhus. I'll have money to afford my sculpting software and my 3D modeling software again, which will be an immense boon, and I'll actually be able to get Warglaive back into production. On the writing front, I haven't been working on it too much, because I have been focusing on the time I would have been putting into the writing of the Melina novel in particular has been being put towards editing videos for the YouTube channel, live streaming, doing that kind of stuff, because that has unfortunately and fortunately been my main source of income for a little while, because again, my local job market is just it's a helpless void of nothingness. There's very few jobs available right now in my local job market, so YouTube in a way has become my full-time job. But with, again, getting this job back with the Navy, I won't have to worry about that anymore, and I can get back to working on Warglaive as I was before. With that being said, there will be a reduction in live streams once that gets underway, which will be, assuming they hire me right out from my interview coming on Tuesday, I'll probably see my first day at work the following week, or maybe 2 weeks from then. So it'll still be a little bit longer to like have everything I need, but on the writing front, I'm definitely putting time in right now. I spent a while last night revising what I was working on, making sure I was, getting back my train of thought for what I was working on for the Melina novel. All that is back underway from that. I'm going over my notes as usual. Generally speaking, it's good to feel like I can definitely see the gold. I can see the light at the end of the tunnel to get through this financial rut of a tunnel I've been in lately. So Warglaive. So the crux of the news is Warglaive will be back into production within the next month, and fully. It's already back in production from the writing and lore standpoint right this moment. But the sculpting and modeling will not be back underway until I have funds to burn on it, so that'll be a little bit longer. But I thank you guys for your patience. I know I've been a little bit radio silent about it for a little while. But that's mainly because the most news I would have had was still broke, still can't afford the software, and again, don't want to be too depressing about the news. And now that I actually have some really amazing news with getting my job back and getting this back underway, I'm very happy to report that you guys will be back to getting monthly updates, hopefully by May. Like, by May, I'll be back to doing monthly updates. Don't hold me too hard to that. I'm going to have to double check everything, but by May, I hope to be getting solid monthly updates. Monthly update videos like the one I'm looping, again, down below. Hey, Billy Mount. In the Navy. Welcome, Nathan. So, yeah, that actually covered all three of my points in that. I was going to go over them each individually, but I kind of all fit them into that little spiel. I know it's really quick news, and I know it's not anything too in-depth, but I did think it justified, like, if you guys had any extended questions, a stream for Q&A. Also, you know, anybody who doesn't really know or care about the Warglaive stuff, also open it up to a general channel Q&A outside of that news. So that's really all I had written down, but if you guys have any specifying questions, feel free to shoot them out. Right now, I guess we're already in the Q&A section. I thought I would go on a longer spiel, but I guess it was pretty. I was pretty succinct. Hey, Jacob, how you doing? I'm a bit out of the loop perhaps, but what are you working on in the video? Oh, did you not see the update, Gabriel? I'm pretty sure you commented on this, didn't you? Or am I out of touch here? No, you didn't. Okay. In that video I was working on, well, I am in the video, I guess, working on one of the Tomb Maker, which is a Gretsch model. The Gretsch is one of the factions in Warglaive. I actually have a, you'll see it at the end of the loop, but I actually have a printed out version. This is the prototype model of the Gretsch Tomb Maker, which they're basically giant sandworms. Fun fact, the inspiration for them is not Dune. Some people have asked me that. I've pointed that out to them, no. The Doom movie I know is the motivator, and I designed these guys and conceptualized them well before the Dune movie of this last year came out. This was something I put together in 2019, I believe. Late 2019, early 2020, I think. But early on, yeah, this is one of the Gretsch models. It's a large, elite, I guess you could say, elite tabletop model with some interesting abilities, conceptualized, of course. But, yep, that's what this guy is. One of my few prototypes that actually got a printing stage. And painting, actually, which was fun. I will say this, I do think I need to hollow out the mini because it's a little hefty. It's not like super heavy, the resin's pretty light, but it's heavier than a standard like plastic mini, so it's not like, I would say it's like a quarter of the way to being a paperweight. Graboids from Tremors. That was more the inspiration for the Tomb Makers. Visually speaking, I described that to you, so you have the in, but yeah. This is one of the Gretsch's elite units. Hefty boys. I'm gonna have two versions of this model. There's this version, which is actually like the full worm on the mini. And I'll probably also have an extended base. I just used a 60mm printed off base that I just had. But realistically, I'm probably going to have like a full length, like an oval shaped, more of an oval shaped base for these guys. But I'm going to have two variations. There's going to be these ones, and then there's going to be ones that are going to be on a circular base. with the head popping out, kind of looking like it's popping out of the ground. So there's gonna be 2 variations of the 2 maker model for customization. So did you plan to make any revisions to the factions, or is there no changes in the department? No, there's no revisions. None. No. I guess it depends. What do you mean by revisions? I'm way past the revision stage for the factions. They are canonical at this point. At the moment I made the Q&A video, they were finalized. Like, they've been finalized. They were finalized when I announced Warglaive. The only thing I've revised is like small details about the factions, and even then there have been no overhauls. There's just been touch-ups at best. The Russian bots, man. As one inspiration. Yeah, that was one of their. It was one of the initial inspirations for sure. My messages are so bloody slow to get forward though. Do you have the rules for some armies or units, or have you not reached that prototype stage yet? I have not reached that stage yet. Right now, I've done some experiments using other wargaming, other war games models as just kind of experimental tests with rule sets. So far, the first prototype rule set was made, and I feel it has failed. I definitely need to throw that one out and start over. But in the case of the rule sets, they're in the prototype stage. It's a lot of experimenting right now. Same 3D printer that we have, at least the red one. You have the Voxelab? I have 2 of the Anycubic Mono X, Photon Mono X's. Unfortunately, one of them is I broke the UV screen, so I need to replace that. Thankfully, I have a replacement UV screen on hand, but I don't have the energy to replace it today, so I'm stuck with the one printer until I can accrue the energy to replace the other one, which will be more paramount later. I suppose if anyone wants to jump into... I'll pull up the Discord, hold on. Let me do this. For anyone who wants to jump into like a stream call and ask me questions as well, I'll do that in the Discord. I do think I need to switch audios. Yeah, so if anyone wants to jump into VC call and ask questions, that's also an option over on the Discord. But yeah, otherwise just feel free to keep asking questions in the chat. No rush. Those are a bitch to figure out. Yeah, I'm also trying not to derive them from the war games I play already too strongly, so I'm being careful about that. Can anyone jump into that call, or is it more private? No, anyone could jump in. I'm taking you one at a time, though, so the call is the call line. You jump into that, and I'll pull you one at a time into the stream call to ask me questions. That way, there's no overwhelming. Though I don't think there's going to be too many of you who are going to be jumping at the bit to the call. But just as a cautionary thing, I make sure to do one person at a time. But yeah, anyone can jump in. How's everybody enjoying this Sunday? I hope everybody's having a good Sunday. Prefer to ask any questions at all, guys. Any questions at all. Which server? My main server. Well, sorry. My Asmo's friends. Asmogan's Adventurers is FF14 specific, so that I would not be referencing that. I would not be referencing that server when in regards to Warglaive. If you're looking for the call I'm in, you're not going to be able to see me. Again, you have to jump into call line, which I'm not in. You jump in there, and I'll pull you into the call I'm in, which is invisible. Sunday's going well enough, considering the reasons you already know. Yeah. I hope the rough times get better for you now. Farmart Candina, welcome to the stream call. Feel free to ask any questions you might have.
Yeah, great, thank you. Sorry for my thick accent. I heard it's kind of annoying.
No, it's fine. I've heard way worse.
Why, thank you. That's comforting.
You're welcome.
Well, yes, Warglaive Gothic. First of all, I just want to say I'm super excited to see this up online again.
I'll be making the monthly updates again when they're ready to go over on the Warglaive channel. Just not to inflate this too much on this one. So
I know. Yeah. I'm already subscribed over there, so don't worry. I just want to say that I'm really excited.
I'm very happy to hear it. I'm excited you're excited.
Wonderful. Yes. So, Warglaive Gothic. What was it? You said that the books have been kind of on hold as well, right?
Yes, mainly because of lack of time as opposed to budget.
Yeah, exactly. I feel you've been very prolific with the streams, I've noticed, which is great. Helped me through a bit. But yes. So, I'm kind of wondering, have there been any new factions you've been scheming on, or is it just still
not
old
for
one?
first edition? First edition is all the announced factions are going to be in first edition. Every other conceptualized faction that is maybe active in the lore is not going to be active until I get the first edition off the ground, because it's going to be easier to balance. Well, I'm going to try my best to keep balance between the existing factions, between the Vogue, between the Warborn, the Sovereignty, the Terran Republic, and the Gretsch. And as it is, that's 5 factions I got to balance right there.
That's enough for a starter.
Yeah. So for first edition, just to keep things more simple, and it's gonna be easier to facilitate a lot of corrections as people, because as much as QA testing as I'm going to be doing before officially launch the rules and start selling the 3D printing files if people want to print off their own minis, I'm going to sell those via my mini factory is currently the plan, assuming there's going to be no registration issues with that. And for those who want me to manufacture the minis myself, I'll be offering that service over on Etsy. I have to make a store over there, but again, this is all stuff I'm planning on, assuming there's nothing that's going to get in the way of that. But the plan is going to be selling the physical minis over on Etsy, just using their storefront. And if you want to buy the STLs, if you have your own 3D printer, I'm gonna set something up with that via. I'm gonna set that up with my mini factory.
Right.
That's the plan with the manufacturing front.
Yes. Sounds about right. When it comes to the model.
Yeah, but if your question was another aspect of your question, though, if another approach to your question is Am I conceptualizing any other factions that exist in the lore, and I'm currently working on adding to their bits for further editions, assuming first
Yeah,
edition.
that's what I was asking.
Yeah, yes.
Wonderful. I'm excited to hear about them when the time comes.
One of them I'm getting a kick out of, but people might scoff at me.
Wait, scoff at you? Why so?
They're a bit silly.
Well, orcs are silly and they're quite loved. In 40k, that is. But yes, what is it? How many units do you plan on maybe having per army as a first edition?
Per army, right now I'm going to be using a point-based system. That way, players can have more restricted ways of bracketing how their armies are going to be allocated for games. But smallest game size, there are horde armies, and there are more elite armies as well. So kind of like that aspect with 40k. There's going to be differing sizes. I'd say on average, if we use like the Sovereignty, for example, the Sovereignty has 2 different armies in their faction. They have the Jackals, and then you have the Helsings, and you can kind of mix and match them together as one army, as allying them together. Or you can just run one or the other. The Jackals are kind of... they're going to be a horde-based gunline army. They are not going to be very good at melee. But their strength runs in overwhelming firepower and overwhelming the enemy with shots. So for their army, I'd say for the smallest game size, there's probably going to be about... On average on the table, if you just ran infantry and didn't do anything like tanks or artillery, they're probably going to be 25, 50 minis on the tabletop.
Okay.
Give or take for the smallest game size. But they're a horde army, so they're going to have larger numbers. For a more elite army like the Helsings, it'd be closer to like having 20 at the most. Again, if you just did infantry, you have about 20 minis on the tabletop for the small side of the game. Big games, I'm conceptualizing right now. I'm not promising this is going to be out for the 2nd edition even, and certainly not going to be out for 1st edition. But I'm working on an Apocalypse-esque sized game version of Warglaive Gothic. I'm coming up with name schemes right now too for it. Like, it's not going to be called Warglaive Epic or Warglaive Apocalypse. I'm coming up with something else for the name, but the idea is it's going to be I'm going to basically sell even lower poly, smaller versions of the minis I'm already designing for Warglaive. Okay. And I'm going to sell those printed off and for the files, and the idea is it's going to be like Epic for 40k, where you have a lot of minis on the tabletop, but everything's smaller.
Yeah.
So you can fit them on the table.
Alright.
So there is going to be a massive game style like that. That one's going to be in the background working on that, and that's also going to be way down the line.
Alright. By the way, just let me know if you need to kick me off for occupying too much time.
No, as long as nobody else is in the call, you don't have nothing to worry about. You're not on a time limit unless somebody else is waiting.
Alright, fair enough. But, alright, that answers that. How about the model range? On average, what could we possibly expect from the factions on that level?
Can you repeat the question?
The model range, like, how many, quote-unquote, if we're gonna go 40k examples again, how many different types of units are there in each army on the general basis? In
the current prototype build of the rule set, and this is probably the thing that's going to stay the most consistent with each version of the rules I run with. There's heroes is what I'm calling them, but they act as HQs. You have hero units, which are they control morale. They are a big part of the motivators for your army. They're the ones leading the charge, and they're going to be the toughest ones on the field to kill. There's going to be that type. I'm assuming you're asking for type, not like... So for okay.
Yeah.
There's going to be infantry, which are gunline, melee, just your bog standard unit is going to be... There's going to be infantry. There's going to be elites. which are going to be separate from tanks. Elites are going to be kind of that middle ground between hero and infantry. They're going to be stronger. Like, for example, the Tomb Maker is not a tank unit, nor is it an infantry, but it's not a hero unit either. It's an elite unit. It's mobile, it's strong, it's tough, but not as strong or tough as hero units, and it also does, well, certain elites are conceptualized to add to morale, but the Tomb Maker, for example, doesn't. It's just a really stronger unit that's harder to kill than an infantry. So, kind of like that middleman. Alright, so heroes, elites, infantry. There is going to be a type of unit called support. Support units are non-combatants. So, like for the Sovereignty Jackal, they'll have a Jackal medic. They're literally just going to be called medics for the Jackals. For the Helsings, they're going to have a hide, which are what they call like doctors and scientists in their faction. They're called hides. Yeah. And they're going to have a hide medical unit for them. And what these support units do is they're typically going to, and this is again conceptualized, keep in mind this is not finalized fully, but the general concept in all the builds so far is they act as support units. In the most extreme powerful cases, they can bring a unit that has been taken off the field back, like killed, in quotes. In the most extreme cases, but I'm gonna make we're gonna be very careful with that because I don't want to make that spammable by any stance, and I also don't want to make that too OP. So that's right there. That can be a big issue. That's right there as a source of frustration in the balancing regard. But yeah, these are units that their entire purpose on the field is to maintain the units from dying, and to potentially bring units back from the dead, so to speak. So but they're not going to. They're not just medics. There's also, I'm working on an idea for like maybe engineers to repair vehicles, because I do want to make them separate. I don't want to make it so one support unit is both somehow a mechanic fixing up tanks and transports, and at the same time healing infantry units. Like, I do want to make them separate, and with the point-based system, kind of force the player to choose. Okay, if I'm running more of a vehicle-based army, I'm going to need more of the mechanic style than I am a medic. Or if I'm running more of an infantry horde, I need more medics than I need mechanics. That kind of idea. But in both cases, in pretty much every army, the support units have no offensive ability. Or next to none. I'm going to get... At best, I'd probably say, in one concept, I'd give them like a basic pistol that hits on 6s. But that's about it. Like... The idea is, again, that they just act as a support unit.
Yes.
And,
you don't want to...
outside of them, okay, so elites, supports, heroes, infantry. The only other type of unit I have... Just making sure I'm not forgetting anybody. Okay, the only other type of unit I have is well, technically, this one's a subcategory of the other categories, so this one's not really, it's not self-contained into itself, but psychic units. Psychic units, there could be some as heroes, there could be psychic heroes, there could be psychic infantry, and elites. And they're going to be interesting. The Gretsch, for example, they have one... I don't have my notes in front of me, so I'm trying to remember the name. Whalers, I think is... I told Pyrrhus this a while ago, but I don't think he remembers. There is a type of Gretsch unit that basically act as an intimidation unit. It's still offensive, it has attacks, but the idea is it's mostly a morale boost for its own faction, and for the enemy faction within a certain range of the unit. If it has a passive ability, which is a wailing ability, which lowers the morale of all the units around it. So during a morale-esque phase during the game, units will have a disadvantage roll when they're within a certain radius, unless they have an ability that gives them resistance to that psychic ability from the wailing unit. for example. So there are units like that, and that unit in particular is considered an elite in the Gretsch army. So more points. It's a little bit of a glass cannon in the current build. The idea is low health but high utility.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, that's pretty much all the categories. There was at one point, it's not now, because I just kind of split it into the other ones. There was a warlord, is what I called them, or Lord of War, I guess you could also call them. But there was a warlord category at one point where it was the most like over the top unit, like big mechs or big like the Beastie Boys that you'd bring into the game. But I mostly just allocated those to either elites or heroes, depending. Okay. As I felt that it didn't need to be its own category. As strong as those units were, they didn't really do it. There wasn't enough about them that really justified being outside those categories, other than just having higher stats than their compatriots in those categories. And
okay.
So yeah.
All right. Sounds interesting, to say the least. I think I really like what you said about the support units. Should be interesting to play around with when the time comes.
I'm gonna find out the hard way when after QA. Like once the actual edition is out, no matter how much QA testing I do, I know I'm gonna get emails of people being like, "Dude, this is broken. This is overpowered. You need to change the stat yesterday." I'm prepared for that, unfortunately, but
it is inevitable, really.
It's inevitable. I've surrendered to the idea.
Yes, you surrendered it. Yeah, that's probably the wisest of choices. Question regarding QA testing and things like that. When the time comes to present the idea and the play stage of the game, will you keep it in a tight-knit group, or will you have it open for alpha testing or whatever you want to call it?
I'm probably going to release... What I'm going to do right now is the prototype stage is basically just me going through what just works at all. Once I find a rule set that not only I like, that I think gives Warglaive its own identity amongst the wargaming kind of ethos amongst the other games in this category, in this genre. Once I find that isn't crazy and doesn't make any sense or requires somebody to lose their mind with calculators and shit, like simple enough but also complex enough that people can really go to ham with it.
Yeah.
So once I find one that just simply not only works but also feels comfortable for Warglaive, I'm then going to stick with that build, that idea, like the stat allocation, the ability functions, the genres of different unit types. Once that is concrete, I will then release basically an alpha build, which is more about the balancing. What I'm gonna release to the public for like testing or allow people to just try out is not gonna be really a debate about the rules or rewriting those. It's gonna be more about the balancing, like the QA testing at that point when I release it to the public. It's not really a debate about the rules. It's more a debate about the balancing and if certain abilities need to be touched up, if certain units have too high a stats that just make them way too abusable, the point values are too low on this one, and so it could be spammed, etc., etc., etc. So that's the plan when I get to that part of it.
Yeah. Are there going to be rules regarding, as you mentioned a bit just now? Are there going to be rules against things like unit spam? Because when I play things like Warhammer of any kind, I often notice that there's often one particular unit of spamming of that, which leads to either complete disarray or just a complete curb stop.
The point-based system that I'm planning on going with right now, that's kind of the intent of that, is to avoid allowing units to be spammed. So, for example, like if they're really strong elites, I'm gonna give them high point values. So, when someone's trying to play like a 500-point game, for example, you can't run with that because it's gonna be a lot of points. So you can only use one or two. The idea is to curb spamming, but by simply making the point values higher for the units that would be preferable to spam. If that doesn't work, the other idea is a slot system. So a slot system with a point system is there's going to be a general point value for like the army, like, oh, this is a 500 point army, for example. And the slot system is, okay, but even though I have all these points I can use, I'm only allowed, let's say, 4 tank slots. I'm only allowed 4 tanks.
Yeah. Yes.
That's an idea as well on the table. If I feel, I'm not sure if I want to do it, because it restricts people a lot more. And if it comes down to restricting or to giving people more freedom to be a little quirky, I want to give people less restrictions if possible. So it'll depend. During QA testing, I'll see, like, I'll look at my own rules and see, like, okay, what would I spam? You know, what would I use to cheese the fuck? I will channel my inner ball. How the fuck do I cheese this?
How do I make the most absurd but functioning strategy possible?
Yeah, and if I can easily find ones that are abusable, then I know I need something to fix up there.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds about right. Was there something else? Do you have any armies currently that is a priority for you in making? Like, you have a few, like the Raffen, or however you called them earlier, the Sovereignty, the Bulk, if they're still a thing, the Terran Republic.
Oh, yeah,
which are your focus right now?
Right now, the focus, especially coming when I have the money to afford my sculpting software, which is the cheapest 3D software I have to design the minis, it'll be the Gretsch, solely because their army has no armor, pretty much at all. It's all biological stuff, so I keep that. So with sculpting it, if anything like is like meaty or not entirely like, it's not like rigid or static, so I don't have to worry about like thick armor and it being geometrical and stuff like that. It's supposed to look like living and breathing. So I can do all that in sculpting, and I don't have to worry about armor whatsoever. At least not like quote unquote unnatural armor. So the Gretsch will simply be prioritized because they're going to be what I can do solely in ZBrush. As for what I'd like to prioritize, if I didn't have to worry about that, I'd probably be prioritizing the Sovereignty. Mainly because the poster boy for Warglaive is... it's going to be a combination of the poster boys, I guess. The 2 armies that are going to be fighting the most and all the artwork for the advertisements and stuff are going to be the Raffen and are going to be the Sovereignty. So those are the 2 armies that I need to prioritize from a marketing perspective. But outside of that, yeah, that's the only reason I'd be prioritizing them.
Okay. Another question. A long time ago, I believe at least, if I remember correctly, you said that the Terran Federation, what they were called, were your favorite. There we have it.
Terran Republic.
They used to be your favorite. Has that changed? Is it still the same?
No, the thing is they weren't my favorite. They were one of my favorites. My 2 favorites from most of the lore that I've written has been the Warborn primarily. Warborn have been my favorites for the most part. The Terran Republic are my favorite from the relatability standpoint. They're for me going to be the faction I expect most people are going to be drawn to. Kind of like the Imperial Guard for 40k is what people are really drawn to. If not from a lore perspective, then from the tabletop. Because they're your box standard humans. They're not too different from us, so there's that relatability factor. That's the Terran Republic and Warglaive. I mean, they're the only human derivative faction that is still human for the most part. The Warborn aren't really human anymore. They're really big. They have sharpened teeth, and they transform into werewolves and werebears and stuff like that. You got the Sovereignty, who are vampires, and they're pretty far removed. Also, from the height perspective, they've genetically altered themselves. They look like walking corpses. So, yeah, from a relatability standpoint, and also like motivations. The Terran Republic aesthetically are familiar because they have their inspirations are from Alien Colonial Marines is one of my favorite like military, sci-fi, like fictional military groups in like fiction. And I'm a huge fan of the 80s, so Like the Alien Colonial Marines look combined with one of my like favorite cultures, I guess, and their time period with Japan back during the Shogunate era or Shogunate Wars era aesthetic of that Japanese more, plated armor and stuff, and also cultural inspiration. So with those both factored in, I'd say from, again, the relatability aspects, it's definitely my favorite would have to be the Terran Republic. But my favorite faction overall is the Warborn. Okay. And they're werewolf Vikings.
Sounds amazing.
I just went metal with that.
Well, you can't complain about metal.
No, you can't. If anyone does, fuck off. Greatest music genre ever. Alright, let me tackle a couple questions in chat.
Absolutely.
Hey, Calcio, you recognize you should make a return? I don't know what that's about. Well, that's not really like this. So about that. With your inexperienced veteran commander like this. I suppose that's a way to look. That's a way to compare it. Calcul. Like the Banshee. Yes. Well, they're not called Banshees, but like the Banshees. Yeah. Hello, Kairos. Welcome to the stream. Just make sure that if stuff's broken, that it's broken in a way that is fun, and not broken like, I don't know, a certain magnetic accelerator cannon, or like one spicy bug. I'll try. That's the thing. The QA side of it's going to be probably the most monotonous. Like, as long and as monotonous as it is to like sculpt the minis, it's probably going to be 10 times more monotonous to actually test the rules. Especially in the early stages when they're the most unbalanced, broken, and weird in the prototyping stage. So that'll be an interesting experimental stage. I'm glad I have my brother-in-law on hand who likes tabletop gaming to help me test the rules out when the time comes. That'll not only will that give me another outside perspective on if it's fun or not, but also someone who will easily tell me if I'm going down a really weird way. But yeah, I'll try and break it in fun ways.
Yeah.
Like, for example, this unit, when it dies and it explodes, the radius of the explosion is like a foot. It's like, well, that sucks. Don't kill that unit, that's a walking nuke.
Fuck me,
we'll
right?
all die. Leave it be.
Save it for last.
Silly stuff, but I'll aim to be silly broken, not irritatingly broken. You can make rules before models, and me and my friends can play testing for you. I can. It's just... it's a weird way to put it like this, but as a 3D designer, I'm more comfortable 3D modeling and designing stuff than I am writing up the rules. I still want to write up the rules myself, but like in terms of like my what would you say? What'd you call that? My bread and butter, I guess. Like my my specialty, what I'm trained at, what I'm good at, is the 3D sculpting and modeling. So when it comes to the rule sets, I'm not as confident, but I am working on it. I'm practicing. I'm constantly checking in with other people as I go. Like, hey, does this sound right? If I get a whopping no, then I know I'm on the wrong path. So, yeah. I'm working on the sculpts because that's what I'm best at, and when it comes to the rule sets, I'm just I keep putting that on pause because it's like, okay, I think I need to take a step back and think about this for a second. So yeah, but you are definitely right. I could definitely make the rules like, well, after a couple more testings, probably could make them within a month. Probably have it comfortable and then have people test it, but I don't know, I guess just my brain doesn't want to, when I'm working on the rules, my brain doesn't want to stick to it for very long because it's alien to me. Even though I love playing tabletop games, writing the rules for them is interesting. Positive feedback loops are especially important to prevent. They fuck the game up big time. Yeah, I don't aim for that. Like, when I ask people for review, I tell them typically to tell me, like, if it sucks, tell me it sucks. That way I can fix it. Yeah, you don't have to be an asshole about it. Like, oh, dude, like, you wrote the worst fucking rules ever. Like, fuck you, dude. Like, I don't think you could write, like, worse rules. And that model, oh god, that's the ugliest thing. Like, you just tell me, nah, it's not very good. Here's what I'd improve. That helps me without destroying my my motivations. Me and Devin are both available playtesters. We already playtested my very original war game, so another one is not a problem. I will keep you guys in mind for when that is ready. Don't worry, I'm the first place that'll probably hear about it will be the Discord group. So that's where I'll probably first publish them, and then publish them somewhere else, maybe. Like, I don't know, maybe I think Discord's a big enough group size to do a test. I don't think I need to post it like anywhere, like on Reddit, for example. Love rules fighting if you want help with it. I have been homebrewing rules for games since I was 11 and have made 3 different games that me and my friends have been playing to this day. Nice. That sounds pretty cool. I don't know. I'll keep you in mind. If you're on the Discord, at me so I know what your Discord tag is. I'll be offended if I say no. I'm not gonna say no because I'm not gonna close that door. Like, I don't know at this stage what's gonna be like the right move or not. Like, it's all the beauty and the horror of doing something like this. When you're creating something, when you're creating a game, there's a lot of intricate. I know a lot of this is kind of like a no duh, but it needs to be voiced at least once. There's a lot of intricacies to it that you're not really like when you say out loud, "Oh, I'm gonna make a game," but then you actually start doing it and you realize, "Oh my god, this is a bigger undertaking than I gave credit." Like, there's a lot of rules, there's a lot of balancing, and some people, unfortunately, just because it's so overwhelming at face values, a lot of people give up. Just because it's like, oh my god, like, there's too much to that. Me, I knew going in there was going to be a lot, and it is overwhelming, but I'm keeping with it, I'm sticking with it, and I'm not letting myself become intimidated just by the scope of all this, including the business side of it. That's probably the most intimidating part, especially when it comes to marketing eventually, when I have to do that and like trailers and stuff. Like, I can put on a voice of a salesman, but I'm not very great at it. Like, I'm the kind of guy, I will speak for hours about the lore and how much I love it and how much I love the characters, how much I love the universe. But when it comes to like that corporate speak, I suck at it. Like, I cannot, like, for the life of me, pull on the salesman hat properly. Like, I will tell you what I love about it, what's great about it, and if you ask me what if I have issues with it, I will be honest, even if it might sound detrimental to selling it, mainly because it's just, you know, I'm a very honest person, so I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Some of you might say it's a good thing. I'm pretty sure any businessman I might talk to might disagree. Like, there is a level of deception, because sometimes if you're too honest and it's mainly just about something that you're not done yet, you don't want to undersell it before you're, you know, ready. That kind of thing. I don't know if I'm making sense right now. Hope I am, but so yeah, when it comes to like beta testers, alpha testers, stuff like that, I have no concrete plans with that. It's just when it's ready, it'll be when I feel comfortable putting up the prototype rules. That'll be when I'll reach out to you guys for it. Till then, you know, I just don't want to muddy the waters with too many differing ideas, because that's where the real problems come in. Like, if I appreciate everybody's enthusiasm to get into it, but I just don't want to be like, I have my own ideas, and then I have this other person's ideas, and I have another person's ideas, and it then all becomes a garbled mess where I overwhelm myself. So, I don't know. The best way to put it is, I'm handling it myself for now, but I'm not at all opposed to having other people come in and allow me to ask them for opinions and takes and ideas even. Ideas is probably where I'm gonna have to pay people to do that though, because that's just a copyright thing. But for opinions, thankfully you don't have to pay for opinions. Hey Lee, how you doing, man? Creating and designing the rules is easy. Exactly. But balancing is not. That's exactly it, and that's the problem. I have a prototype of the rules. It's the balancing that is shit right now that I need to throw out the window. It's fun for me? Yeah, and it's not as fun for me, because again, that's just my mindset. I'm not the rules guy. And I don't, here, this is where I'm bad at a salesman. The fact that I said that, some of you will be like, ooh, I don't know if I want to play this game then if you suck at writing rules. I suck at it right now, but I'm working at it, and I promise everyone here that I'm not going to provide a rule set that isn't fun to play, that I haven't played myself and didn't think was fun. So, though I'm not good at it, though I don't like to do it, it's something I'm learning to do. It's something, the balancing aspect, I'm definitely going to have a lot of trial and error with. But I promise everyone here, I'm not going to release out there to the world, to you guys, anything that I would consider subpar. Anything that I don't enjoy playing, and anything that I think is spammable, is broken, and is just an unfun mess. If it comes out like that, just know it's not, it just didn't come up in testing, and that it's something I'm going to fix the moment I hear about the issue. I'm not gonna Bethesda this, is what I'm saying. So, any other questions?
On my part or that part?
Either.
Either or. Either or. What am I thinking about? Yes. I think this is a given, but you might want to roll back on that self-criticism when you actually start, going forward with the product. I mean, I think your community is very open and grateful with your takes and all that. But when you start going forward, but what is it? Yes. When it comes to the game itself, has there been a process of it where you have tried to create a faction but decided against it?
Yes. In the very earliest stages, before I even came up with the name of the game, the very first concept for the factions, the Rathan have always been there. They were the very first idea that I came up with before Warglaive had its name, before I had any of the faction ideas. The Rathan came to mind, because the earliest conceptualization for the Grimdark idea was, what's the most horrifying boogeyman, other than like the cosmic horror, because the Gretsch are kind of more the cosmic and biological horror, because the inspiration for the Gretsch is, I think I've said this before, is John Carpenter's 1982 The Thing and Pan's Labyrinth are like the biggest visual inspirations for them. And a part of their lore is inspired kind of like by Lovecraftian lore. I know, shocker. I know that's kind of stereotypical, but there's a reason Cthulhu is so iconic. I mean, that kind of cosmic horror is very striking, and it kind of defined the whole genre. So that's the only example I have off the top of my head, is that Lovecraftian kind of cosmic horror is from their lore, and from a visual standpoint, their body horror from John Carpenter's 1982 The Thing, and the visual intimidation aspects from Pan's Labyrinth. So that's like the Gretsch. But for the Rathan, it was like, what's the standard boogeyman? Like, what's the understandable threat? Like, what's a threat that we understand, but that understanding brings no comfort? that understanding why and where they're gonna strike and what motivates them. What kind of boogeyman like that is gonna provide a constant state of fear, despite that understanding, and that's where the Wrathen came in. But to answer your question, one of the factions that I came up with shortly after the Wrathen was a, for lack of a better way to put it, was, I don't know if I want to share this. It's really stupid. I came up with and it wasn't a joke or a gag idea. I was gonna try and do this seriously, but a clown race, like full on like big red noses and like dun 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 dun. I shit you not, and I know the reason I don't want to share this is because I don't want to give people like, it's like, ah shit, this guy's writing the lore, he came up with this idea, fuck. There's a reason I aborted it. I understood it was stupid. It was just an idea I came up with because I was thinking, I can write clowns in outer space, like a clown xenos species in space that's intimidating. Not really.
All right.
Not really. I tried. It was something I did whack at a couple times, but I couldn't do it. Like, I was like, every time I visualized the faction, I was like, no matter how like horrific I write these guys, they're just gonna be hilarious to most people who don't have an ingrained fear of clowns. Like that was all they were gonna be. Really, is just the faction that's scary to people with clear fear of clowns. So I just couldn't do it. So I totally scrapped them. But yeah, I had a George Lucas level dumb idea. I didn't need anyone to tell me it was bad though, so I want to point that out. I knew it was a bad idea and I ditched it. But that was a really dumb one. A less dumb one that I nixed. I nixed a elf-esque faction in the lore, like pointy ears and fantasy-inspired space elves. Because that was at the time where I was still conceptualizing, I was still thinking of ideas, I was looking at the things I loved, and I liked Tolkien's fantasy, and I was like, okay, what about elves in space? I was like, that's already been done. And it's also been done ad nauseum, and on top of that, it kind of, I myself hated the idea. Like, after I came up with it, I was like, you know what, I actually realized in that moment, I hate the Eldar. I hate fantasy tropes being dragged in, fantasy trope races, I should say, being dragged into sci-fi. Why did I think this was a good idea? So I ditched it. So yeah, sci-fi elves was an idea at one point, but I don't know. For me personally, maybe it's because 40K did it so belligerently, whereas StarCraft I think handled the space elf idea better with the Protoss, making them actually not feel like, yeah, they have the vibe of space elves, but they don't have the aesthetic, and they are different enough culturally that you don't feel that derivative.
Yeah.
Whereas you look at 40K, what's the difference between Drukhari and Dark Elves? Nothing. What's the difference between High Elves and the Craftworld Eldar? Nothing. Like, it just, for me, I was like, fantasy tropes in space, not only has it been done, but I'm not a fan of it myself. Like, I really don't, I don't love it. I'm not saying it can't be fun, like, space dwarves. I don't know, that sounds fun to me. That sounds like it could be cool. But elves in particular, or orcs, it's been done, and I just don't like the idea on its own anymore. Like, it still works for 40K for me. Like, I think it looks cool in 40K. But maybe it's because I like it so much there that I just don't see it in any other one in a sci-fi setting. So, yeah, I just the fantasy tropes I want, trope races. I was like, nah, I'm just gonna nix those out of the equation.
All right. I was going to follow that up with what is one of the most out there wacky factions and armies you have schemed on, but would it be right in assuming that the Clowns might have been the one?
What was the wording of the question? Just so I know there isn't another answer to it.
Yes, the most out there or wacky or kind of like most insane idea you came up with.
It was the clowns. They were the most out there stupid idea I had. So stupid I didn't even write it down before I realized how stupid it was. It never touched my notes. I was like, this is an idea. No, it's not.
Oh, it's not.
This is not an idea. This is a fever dream. Killer Clown. I watched Killer Clowns from Outer Space too many times.
Hmm?
Have you not seen that movie?
What did it say?
I don't know. Your lack of reaction to that. Have you seen that movie?
Which movie did you say?
Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
I believe I've seen it a long time ago, but it's such a
good movie. Watch it. It's great. It's fantastic.
Right, I'll take your word for it. I'll give it a watch.
Alright, let me make sure the chat hasn't asked any further questions.
Of course.
Hey, Gavin Isaacs. Welcome. Hi, glad to finally see some more good content. How are you? I'm doing pretty good. I'm running on 2 hours of sleep right now, but I'm doing pretty good. I spent all night writing, so. I was trying to stop. Like, I was like, okay, I'm gonna set an alarm. I'm gonna stop at around 2 a.m. Call it a night. Go to bed. My alarm goes off, and I just press snooze on it. I kept pressing snooze. I kept pressing snooze. I kept pressing snooze until about 5 a.m.
That's all right.
I was like,
been there, done that.
Yep. Writing,
damn it.
You might look at the Exiles from Infinity Wars card game. I don't know that. Exiles from Infinity Wars card game. Do you not just think Killer Clowns from Space, the awful 90s slasher flick? It's still a great film. I regret nothing by saying that as a guilty pleasure. It's not actually guilty, but I love that film. You Space Elves? Yeah, I ditched the idea. This is just the fan. It's been done before, and it felt weird. It didn't fit the universe. Space dwarves need more love. They could be really fun. They could be. And they do exist in the Warglaive universe. So I kind of broke my own rule with that. But yeah, that's one of the factions that is planned for further editions. I might as well say it now. If you guys have more questions about them later, actually, if you have questions about it now, I'll answer them to a degree. But I guess consider this the first. I guess I'll add that to the good news. I was going to keep all the factions that are in the coming editions to myself, but there is a... They're not called Space Dwarves, but effectively Space Dwarf faction.
Okay.
In Warglaive.
Right. So I was going to ask a fellow question again, but it seems like you answered it for me. Sounds like you have some plans for future armies already as well, even if they are not going to be in first edition.
Yes. They're right now. If first edition goes over well, and I get that, whether or not that it goes over well or not, more of if first edition goes well in the sense that, you know, people enjoy the universe. It takes off a little bit. I'm not expecting like oh my god, like the day after I release it I'm gonna be making millions. More like, no. You know, if there's like there starts to be a little bit of a cult following, you know, people are trying out the game, maybe not necessarily with my minis, but just trying out the rule sets or having fun, I'll then begin work on second edition. And I already have 2 new factions being added in second, but I'm thinking of rolling that back to releasing 1 more and then third edition down the line. And the editions, I know it kind of sounds like I'm releasing these like a year apart. Each edition is actually the idea is that I'm gonna be updating the first edition with like corrections and balancing issues as they're reported to me by players playing the game. I'm gonna be working on that for a good 2-3 years. and then when that's all said and done, then I'll release second edition. Really, what's going to differ the editions is, yes, there are going to be balancing changes with the editions, but the big thing is going to be lore editions and faction editions, and with those coming with balancing issues. So what's really going to mark the edition change is the addition of factions, and with them, the balancing of the game.
There seems to be some good questions in the chat right now. Maybe we want to take them.
Okay. Can I skip to the bottom, or?
I think, who was it? Jacob Jones and Libros had some good ones. I'm going down from there.
Could be interesting to have human faction or group that has adapted entirely to void living in space stations and ships. Pyrrhus, I didn't even tell you about the space dwarf faction, and kind of scares me. Is it because we talk so much about this that you just kind of know how I think? God damn you. With that detail, the space dwarves don't have a home planet. They, again, I'm not going to tell you the name of the... Well, I could. If you guys really wanted me to, I could tell you the name. But the Space Dwarf faction in Warglaive, they live on ships. Basically large, what are called forge ships. The forge ships are just these massive, hulked out, like small moons with engines, really, is the way to put it. Just these mobile fortresses that they keep adding new layers to on the outside. So it's kind of like an onion, but they're adding layers over time. Like, they started building the ship when it was a small little like room in the center, and since then, over hundreds of years, they keep adding new rooms, new colonies as their populations expand, and they just keep adding and adding to it. And when they run out of materials, they raid planets. Now, the raid in the sense of, they do raid cultures, they do, like, actually steal stuff, and, like, go to war over just resources, so they can continue to expand their forge ships. But they also just raid uninhabited planets for resources. Like, they mine them, they use up all the wood, the coal, diamonds, minerals, whatever they can find on the planet, they harvest it up very, very quickly. With manual labor primarily. Nothing's very automated with them. And they just kind of swarm out of their ship, and within maybe 100 years in a really big planet, and like 25 or less, they use up the planet's resources and then move on as they continue to expand their ships. And they're constantly expanding the ships, building outwards. They're constantly inventing or altering weapons to make them more lethal. Things like that. Like, the Space Dwarf faction right now in their current lore is very, very fun. I think they're really cool, and I think you guys are going to like them when they're ready for second edition. Which I know talking about them now is probably cruel, considering first edition's not even ready yet, and that's probably a year or no more down the line. And on top of it, when that comes out, you got another 2-3 years till Space Dwarves are going to be ready to be added for balancing. They are currently in the lore, though. Oh, hey, super random question. Have you made any of your stuff available for 3D print? I just got one for Christmas and want to mess around with it, but would prefer supporting someone I know for it. I have nothing outside. Well, I've now finalized the Tomb Maker. The Tomb Maker is now finalized. The only thing about it is I kind of want to hollow out the mini because it's a lot of resin to make this worm, and I still got to make the alt version where it's just the head popping out of the base. That's the only mini that's finalized, really. And even then, that one still needs some touch-ups before I would sell it. For updates, there's the Patreon. For the highest tier patrons, I'm planning on adding this later, but for the highest tier patrons, when minis are finalized, I'm going to temporarily offer in a post the 3D prints. So if people want to get the file when it's available and it's finalized, I will offer it up temporarily on the Patreon for maybe like a week. And then I will remove it from the Patreon because down the road I'm going to be selling these as part of the official release of the game. So the answer to that question is not currently. Soon. Hopefully. Fingers crossed. Exiles. I read it. I read it out loud. I don't know much about Exiles, so I'd have to look into that. Question: what would be the most hidden or obscure race of Warglaive? Well, to you, the players, as in what I'm working on, or to like the greater factions in the lore? I guess since I've already revealed them, you guys can ask questions about the Space Wars while you're here. Their lore is finalized, it's just their addition to the game itself is going to be held off for a later edition. Both from an incentive standpoint and from again, I don't want to have too many factions on the initial release to balance out, because it's going to already be a nightmare with the 5 that are there. Just finding you some trails thought you found, yeah. Hey Ravenwing, welcome. Asteroid Bases? Well, there is actually one, but it's the reason I hesitate to call it an asteroid base is it started out as an asteroid, but the Space Dwarves kind of melted down all the resources on the actual asteroid as they were adding layers out. So it's no longer an asteroid. They started building on an asteroid with the mineral deposits on it, and then they ran out of those. So it's now just a ship. So at one time, I'm glad you're excited for a Ravenwing. I really am terrified of disappointing you people. That's why I'm taking my time. That way, when it is ready, you guys aren't disappointed. What kind of weapons would the Space Dwarves bring to battle? They bring a combination. They do have a small melee focus. They're very hard hitting. They're not a horde army. But they're very, very hard hitting is the current build. From a melee standpoint, they're kind of balanced between melee and ranged. They don't have very good overlapping gunfire in the sense of like the basic rifling they use. It's more that their strength comes from using explosives and artillery. So their ranged weaponry is kind of the weakest in their faction, but it's not the weakest in the game. Like, they have passable, like, rifle fire, overlapping rifle fire is the current idea. But they have very strong close quarters combat. And they're tanky. They can take a lot of hits. But they're slow. Insert Tolkien Gimli jokes here. Since I have so few specific expectations, it would be hard to disappoint me, at least. I don't know how I feel about that, but good? I think. I have that basically reads as, I expect so little out of you, there's nothing really to disappoint. That's thanks, Calcio, love you too. You're great. I don't know how my morale boost for the day is gone. That's great. Thank you, Calcio. I appreciate it. You're awesome.
I mean, a good strat that I've learned to deal with is that when the praise or criticism is kind of vague and you don't really know what to do with it,
yeah,
always assume it's the best.
Thanks.
It's easier that way.
Are they good at short distance sprinting? Yes. Very deadly over short distances. Unironically, yes. As much as I can tell you about how they play the tabletop, they're not going to be ready until 2nd edition. Well, technically they're probably going to be ready mid-1st edition, but they're not going to be released until 1st edition is balanced in itself. And they're balanced in come 2nd edition.
Yes. A few questions, if I may. Lending some Warhammer terms here, apologies. But when the time comes to release the game, how do you plan on distributing the rules and things like that? Will it be codexes, and if so,
I've answered this before. It's on the website's FAQ, but the distribution of rules is going to be via public PDF.
Public PDF?
Yeah, for free.
Yeah, wonderful.
I'm not going to charge people with the rules. It's no.
So online database, basically.
Yeah, I mean, on my website, I'm going to just release the rules right there. The general game rules, the different phases, how they work, how they all play out. They're going to be available for free on the website.
Factions as well, or are they a different matter?
Sorry, what?
Factions as well, or are they a different matter?
The factions are going to be released in archive, what are called archive books, which are going to, they act as codexes. They're going to have their individual abilities, stuff like that. I am going to sell those, but I am going to offer, the idea right now is I'm going to offer a free digital version without all the fluff. It's just going to be the raw info. But if you want like the collector's item, if you want the physical rule book with you, just either to just support me a little extra and get something out of the support, but that being like this physical item. But I don't want to force people to buy. Again, like some people are going to call me a really dumb businessman, but I'm a bit of a hobbyist first, so I have to admit. So I'm going to offer a free, just here's what's in those codexes that you need to play the game, or what you would want to play the game, I should say, which are going to be part of like the rules release. And like all the lore fluff, all the artwork that's going to be in the books, all that's going to be just in the book to buy. It's more of a collector's thing is how I'm viewing it, as opposed to forcing players to get it if they want to play the game, and then when they get it, I upcharge them for updates to the rules because I forgot to balance it in the first place. Like someone I know who does that. Well, I say something. A corporate body does that. That frustrates the fuck out of me.
That's mighty kind of you. Yes. So I would then imagine that revenue will primarily come from these quote-unquote collector books as well as the models then.
Yes.
Alright. Do you plan on, in your vision, do you plan on the models to always be resin 3D printable, or would you have plastic mold machines one day?
I've looked into the plastic mold machines, the same type that GW uses, for example. Plastic injection molding is expensive. The machines are massive as well, so I would need a physical location, like a warehouse, to which to operate such a, operation out of, which in itself costs money. If you factor everything together from the locations, the properties I need to buy, the machines themselves, which cost over... the ones I looked at were over $80,000 a pop, which, in the grand scheme of things, is actually kind of cheap. But if you count factor that in, $80,000 for those. Factor in the cost of the property, which I did. Even if I didn't buy it outright and got a loan for a place like that, a business loan from the state, that's probably around $800,000 to $900,000, if not a $1 million loan, potentially, and depending on the size of the property. Well, I know around where I live, the warehouses are big or really tiny. So, and tiny's obviously not coverable, so I'd have to get one of the big ones unless I wanted to move shop to a different state. And then you got to factor in moving costs with that. So I'm looking at an investment of, if I did plastic injection molding, to be able to facilitate plastic injection molding, I would have to have a minimum investment of around $1.3 million at my last projection, and that was before the recent inflation issue with our currency here in the US, so it's probably much more than that now.
Okay.
So I would love to do injection molding. Is it at all practical? No. Not at all. Not at all.
At least not yet. No.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't think that this is going to be $1 million thing, especially with, like, again, I'm not going at this with a businessman mentality, so I'm going to hurt myself financially for this. I'm not selling the mini. I'm selling the mini STLs, which means people are gonna just give their friends the STLs. They're not gonna encourage them to come support me. But I'm not like throwing shade. I'm not trying to be self-deprecating. I'm being honest and frank. I understand how this works. Some people are gonna buy them from me, and then they're gonna try and redistribute and sell them. I'm gonna try and curb stomp that, but there's only so much legal action you can really have over the internet, and I'm not a corporation with 1 million lawyers who have a bunch of free time to hunt down these people on the internet. So, people are gonna redistribute it, claim it as their own. They're gonna sell it to people, or they're gonna gift it to friends. So that's gonna hurt my bottom line. I'm also gonna get I'm gonna get next to no money, because there's plenty of people who are not gonna really be drawn to buy the archives, since the important information in them is gonna be free. So I'm not gonna make a ton of money there, just from people who want to support me and get something out of it from a collector's item. This is not going to make a lot of money. I'm going to lose far more than I'm going to make, but Warglaive is worth it to me. Like, I'm not in this to make money. I'm in this, like, if I was in it to make money, I'm already in the red, like almost $6,000. Actually, I think I'm closer to $7,000. I'm $7,000 invested in this so far, in the red. I don't regret a single penny I've invested. This is going to be a thing, but I have no delusions I'm going to be making millions of dollars. I have no delusions that this is going to be the most amazing, successful project ever. Tabletop hobbies, as it is, are a niche hobby. Not a ton of people play tabletop hobbies. I do. I love them, and that's why I'm doing this. I'm not doing this to get rich, because I'm not going to. To be frank. So, will there ever be plastic injection molding? My personal belief is no. I would love to be proven wrong, but I just don't see this making that much money.
Alright.
But the important part is people are going to have fun with it. So,
yeah. It's a passion project more than anything, then.
Yeah, every dollar I charge for this is solely just to make some of my investment back, really. That's how I'm looking at it. I'm looking at trying to I'm trying to minimize the casualty to my pocketbook. That's the most I'm doing. But for me, what's important is that this hobby grows, that it creates a community, people enjoy the books, they like the lore. That might make money. Like, I hope maybe the books sell well. That might make money. But the game itself, the tabletop, the rules, as I said, my scheme is not get rich quick scheme. I am a hobbyist. I am making a hobby. That is the mindset behind this.
Yes. Yes. Well, I said that's very admirable. That's what's it called? What's the word I'm searching for? admirable, and well, I think you have the right spirit of it. If
I'd say I'm
being
stupid,
a
but I'll take admirable.
yeah, if business point, it's stupid. As a hobbyist, it's very admirable. But yes,
Yeah, as long as people enjoy the game, have fun, that's the biggest payment I ask for, really, out of it. Like I want people to love the lore. I want people to enjoy the hobby. I want this to be something that is a positive force for people who want to have fun.
yes.
That is the goal with it. Not to sound profound, I'm not like some tabletop gaming messiah. Like, I'm just a nerd with a bad business sense and more sentimentality than I should have. But I love tabletop gaming, and I like to share that love, and I see this as one way to do it.
Yes. What's it called?
What?
What? Yeah.
You asked what's it called? I'm not sure what you mean. What's what called?
No, I mean, I'm just trying to figure out myself what I was about to say.
Okay.
I was going to make a suggestion, but that would only be tooting my own horn, so I'm gonna instead keep it on topic. What was it? So you have said you said you were going to be 5 factions initially, right?
Yeah, that is what the number is going to be for first edition.
All right, and the Republic was strong firelight, like multitude of shots, right?
Yes, they're a gun horde army with the ability to make them an elite army if you use a lot of mechs, so mech spam.
Yes, mech spam, yeah. Sounds about right. And the sovereignty was a bit more elite.
The sovereignty has 2 armies in it, which technically, in the same sense as the Terran Republic, has 2 armies in it. Whereas like the Warborn really only have the 1 type. The Terran Republic, you can mix and mash the same way you can with the sovereignty. Like you can mix in Helsings amongst Jackals because they do serve very close together. It's not the way it works lore-wise and the way it works visually in like the tabletop is different from, like, for example, the Astra Militarum to the Space Marines in 40k. Whereas they can mix and mash, but they're very clearly different armies and how they operate. It's actually not like that between the Helsings and the Jackals. They serve together actively. Like, they aren't separate entities that come together for certain battles. They are always working together. They're different branches of the military, but they work together as much as the Army works with the Navy or the Army works with the Air Force. Like, they're just another branch that's more elite, and if you want to build your sovereignty army more Helsing based, you can. If you want to make it more Jackal based, you can. If you want to completely cut out one or the other, you can. But the idea is that they're not considered different armies. Same with the Terran Republic. The Terran Republic has mechs, and they have their soldier lines. You can do a mix. You can make it a mech only army. You can make it a gun horde army only.
Yeah, sounds good. So if we were also going to go by the general sense of the faction, and not necessarily go all into the sub factions or whatever you want to call it within them, what is the primary way these factions fight? What differentiates them?
Well, the easiest one to point out would be the Warborn. The Warborn are a melee-heavy army with next to no gun lines at all. They don't really do. They have ranged units, but they're kind of there for show. They don't really do much. They're not very effective. At best, they're a distraction. And if you ignore them, they can cause damage over time, but they're not a strong unit by any means. In the case, so they're very melee focused. In the case of the Terran Republic, they have the Gun Horde army that you can do, and that Gun Horde is very good at melee. So if you want to do a Gun Horde army only, they have effective melee on top of good range combat. Whereas the Sovereignty don't have very good melee for their Jackal units, but amazing melee for... they have amazing melee for the Helsings. So that's the difference there. And kind of the opposite with how the mechs work. Mechs are not... Some mechs, if you allocate them the right weapons, can be really good at melee, but they're better at range. They're better as mobile artillery or mobile gunfire, shooting LMGs and shit, or the equivalent of LMGs. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's like that's the general idea between what differentiates them. Is yes, both may have gun horde armies, but it's in the smaller meta of how they play that differs them drastically. Because again, the Jackals have next to no melee. They are shit melee. At best, they have bayonets that cut through armor pretty effectively, but they don't have the katana, like the energy katanas that the Terran Republic have. Like they are far less trained and far less experted in melee combat. So once they get in melee range, they're going to get decimated if they don't have a Helsing bulwark or assault Helsings to aid them in holding off the melee line. And the Terran Republic they got very good ranged and very good melee, but they don't have a lot of armor. They're not very tough, whereas the Jackals are a bit tougher. So that is their weaknesses in particular is. So it's it's in the smaller metadata that really differs them. Like if you just read if you just hold it out in front of you and you don't look at the smaller details, it's like, oh, both can do gun armies, both can do elites. What's the difference? But if you actually look at the details and actually look at the stats, they differ quite drastically.
Yeah. Yeah, I figured. I mean, there are similarities, I'd imagine, but there's also the distinctions. Yeah. And what about factions like the Rathan? How do they function?
Rathan fight as a... They kind of do everything. The Rathan are kind of the most evil of the factions, but... how do I word this? They don't know what rules are. Like, they don't have lore-wise, the explanation for how they play is they don't really have a rule. Like, they are devastating in melee if you hyper-focus them in melee. They are devastating at range if you have enough of them to make up for the fact that they can't aim for shit. But the thing is, what's the most devastating is if you roll good. A part of their faction is affected by luck. They have shit equipment that they have ramshackled together from raided equipment that they've stolen and that they've fucked with consistently. They have very shady tech. Mm-hmm. It works because they are talented engineers for what they do, but they're very scrappy. Everything's built fast. If they cared about taking time, they could build some devastating technology. They could design ships that would rival the Sovereignty's battle fleets. They could, if they took the time, but they're fast. They raid all the time. They are constantly fighting. They have no patience at all, so everything is just built quickety, quick. So despite their natural born-built talent for designing and ramshackling things together, and somehow it's still functioning, with how little time they build this stuff, it's still trashy equipment. So they have very poor likelihood of landing their shots. Their weapons up close in close quarters combat in the lore have low durability, so you can easily break their equipment. I don't know if I'm going to translate that at all to the tabletop. Durability sounds like an unnecessary frustration, especially with them, so I'm thinking of not having that a thing. But I am going to translate that to how effective the actual weapons are. The Rathan are a numbers game. You want a lot of them.
Maybe, yes, that's spitballing here, but maybe damage characteristics can reduce over time. I don't know, but alright, sounds interesting at the very least.
Yeah, like they can do ranged, they can do melee. They're better at melee than ranged, significantly, but they can do both. They're just not good at one of them, and they have a lot of interesting tactics at the moment with how they work. Right now, one tactic, there's actually an ability system in the game, and one of the abilities for their faction that I've come up with is I don't know, hold on, I'm trying to remember the name of the ability. Let me recall. Okay, I think if I recall correctly, the name of the ability is "Let's Play Our Fair." So, you know, I was like, play fair kind of a game. Like, they have an ability called "Let's Play Our Fair," and what it is all the ability only works. The ability only works if there is if the majority of the enemy force is within the majority of the enemy army is within a certain range of the majority of yours. So basically, your main line of your units, of your infantry, needs to be a certain distance from the majority of their main line of their infantry. And if you're within that distance, they absolutely, all of them, throw some kind of explosive weapon with a very low you have to basically roll, and again, I'm trying to keep it to d6s, because I like how Warhammer's rules. I like how it's all d6s pretty much. So the idea is you roll a d6 for every single one of those explosives they fall, and for every 6 you hit, that explodes. Oof. So the unfortunate problem is that if you make a really big horde army, that can pretty much win you the game in a single move. So I'm workshopping how it works. But the idea currently is that if the entire enemy army is close enough, they will throw their explosives. But the problem is the distance. The idea, anyway, is the distance between your main line and their line is going to be close enough that they're going to lose units too with the explosives. Yes. So when they throw their grenades, when they throw their improvised explosives, they will feel the brunt of the attack as well. But their hope is that just because there's so many of them, and preferably less of their enemy, that when the dust settles, they'll still have the upper hand.
No.
So it's being workshopped, but the current name of the ability is "Let's Play Our Fair," and the idea is, again, it's just this big wallop of explosives from every single unit represents that is in your front line represents one roll you have to make at the enemy.
Yes. Alright. Sounds cool.
Yeah, Kairos summed it up better than I did. They have a lot of units in every category that are all cheap and shit. That is the simplest but yet most accurate way to put it, yeah. They have nothing that is amazing, but they have everything.
Alright.
And the idea is the general abilities of their faction is they are sneaky assholes. They're raiders in space. They care if they have no rules, they have no qualms, there's no rules of engagement, no limits to what they'll do. And I'm having fun writing the rules for that, but it's balancing the fuck out of them that's going to be a headache. Because that's why I'm trying to make all of them rely so much on luck. Like, a lot of them so far is like, oh, if you roll a d6, if you roll a d6 when this unit does this, you know, the idea is that they can be a devastating army if you have luck. And if you have no luck, you're very potentially fucked.
The kind of the old orc gimmick, kind of.
Similar, yeah.
Alright. Yes. Sounds very interesting. You said that potentially on On 6s you could do some extra fine damage and things like that, and that might be a worry as well.
Extra fine
Yeah.
damage?
You did say, unless I'm mistaken, you did say something about on a 6 they could do explosions and deal extra damage.
Not extra damage, just the raw explosive damage from from their explosives and their equipment.
Alright, fair enough. But still, it can be very painful.
Yes. The roll is just to see if it actually goes off. Because again, these are explosives that they built that day, probably 10 minutes before they threw them. The likelihood the fuse is going to stay lit, the likelihood that the actual wires in the C4 actually go off. The idea is, if you have luck on your side, you will win like a motherfucker. If luck is against you, you will lose and die. And I want to make it memey, but I also don't want to make it broken.
Yes.
So that's going to be an interesting... The Rathan are going to be a very fun QA test. There's probably going to be a lot of moments of like, what the fuck? But...
How did this happen to me?
Yeah, like, well, like what Calkiel said earlier of like a fun broken, they're probably going to be a fun broken no matter what I do on first edition. I'm going to do my best to make them not broken when they come out though.
Yes.
But they're very fun. Space hyenas.
Yes. I like that idea a lot. Hyenas. You said you had some kind of... They are kind of a nightmare creature for you?
Yeah.
Once upon a time?
Well, when I shared the story before, but when I was a kid, I'll keep it short. When I was a kid, I live on a farm. We had a pig barn, and in the pig barn we had rats starting to like dig little dens underneath the concrete slabs from where the pigs lived, and they would eat the scraps at night the pigs didn't get to, or they would pick at their poo and stuff like that. Like nasty creatures. But when I was little, I went out to feed the pigs, and I heard while I was like getting the food ready, I heard a we put up rat traps, so I heard a snap. So I knew the trap went off, and I went over, and there was a rat that was still moving. I don't know if he was just twitching or if he was actually, if it hadn't successfully killed him. So I was like 8, or I was like 7 or 8. I wasn't very old, but I was like, oh, we got the rat. So I ran to go get my mom, and I yelled to her, and she said she'd be right out. So I went to go check the trap again, and as I walked in, all like I want to say like 4 or 5 rats bailed, like they were surrounding that one rat stuck in the trap, and they bailed and they went back in the hole. And when they like dispersed, all that was left of that poor rat was its head. If he was still alive, they'd eaten him alive.
More gil for the cause.
Thank you, Ball, for the super chat, man. Thank you for the support, and thank you for the support of the channel, support for me, and support for Warglaive. Much appreciated, man. And for me, that a little 8-year-old me, I was like, what the I was like petrified of that shit. It scared the crap out of me, because it was just so horrifying. Like, he snapped in the trap, and his buddies were like, all right, lunchtime, and they just fucking ate his ass in like the 3 minutes I had been gone. If that, just tore him apart and ate him. So that part of that that complete devoid of any kind of interpersonal love or connection was petrifying. And in concept, as that now that I'm older and I kind of analyze it, maybe overly so, that idea of having no qualms, no restrictions, no morals, nothing like that at all. Like, imagine not having any of those things. And that's basically where the Rathan's idea kind of came from, is just, again, a complete devoid of any morality, any laws. And that's why, even when I look at all my factions, even though they all have elements of them that make them bad guys, that make them wrong in their own right, the Rathan are probably the only ones that you would either describe as pure evil or not evil at all, depending on how you look at it. If you judge them based on your moral compass, they are the most evil, horrendous monsters in existence. They will grape you minus the G. They will. It doesn't matter if you're male or female. If they just want to get their rocks off, that's why they love collecting slaves from the worlds they raid. They will grape you. If you're female, they can breed with you no matter what your species is, and you will produce a 99.999% Rathan creature that'll burst out of you like a fucking like a fucking xenomorph and eat you. And until you give birth, they will. And if you're not that, they don't see you worth the breeding, they'll eat you alive. They will eat each other alive. They fight each other for every bit of resource on their raid barges. They have absolutely no morals. So you would either describe them, based on your own moral compass, as the most evil, horrendous monsters, or you would describe them as the only pure beings in the entire galaxy of Warglaive. Because that's just the way they live. They have no love. They have no hate. They have no happiness. Oh, sorry, they have no sadness. They have plenty of happiness because they just revel in existence. The way they live is the way they live. They see nothing wrong with it. And some Rathan are even intelligent enough to even look at the way, like, we judge morality. For example, like, there's I could go. The thing is, I'm trying to keep it contained, but it's one of those things I could talk about this stuff for hours, and we could be here for like the next 8 hours, and I would not at all lose interest in the conversation, but I have to make sure I don't like go off the rails. But I would simply try and like sum it up with, for me, yes, the Rathan are based off of that childhood experience. Also, when it comes to like hyenas, I think they're cool looking, and also when I was a kid, for some reason I thought hyenas were scary. I think it was because my older brother showed me an image of them like eating an animal when I was like 7. So I think that's why, but I'm not entirely sure. The memory's a little hazy. But when I was little, I was terrified of hyenas. I thought they looked scary. So, so combine those two things, that experience of watching those rats just eat their buddy alive, potentially, in the rat trap, and how much that fucked with me, and then also look at how hyenas were kind of like that weird creature that for some reason I thought was scary. Now as an adult, I think they're kind of cute looking. I know that they're scary and dangerous predators, but I'm like, it's kind of adorable.
Rathan, not so much.
No. They are the boogeyman of the universe. The ones you can easily understand because they just live to satisfy all basic needs. But that understanding doesn't bring any kind of comfort.
No, it really wouldn't.
Nope. Special flavor, fuck. Are there any that have like sub-factions with different playstyles on Tabletop, like different clans in the Rathan? Yeah, there are. There are several different clans in the Rathan, and some specialize. There are different regiments within the Jackals and within the. They're not called regiments for the Terran Republic. What did I call them? Fuck. It'll come back. It'll come to me. But there are different regiments, for example, for the Jackals, which give them different bonuses and stats, and give them different playstyles. For example, there are more quote-unquote melee-focused Jackal factions, but the most melee-focused Jackal sub-faction is on par with the shittiest. Well, not the shittiest. The most middling melee specialization amongst the Terran Republic Marines divisions. I'm trying to remember the name. It's not coming to me. Schools. That was what they were. The schools. They have different schools amongst the Terran Republic Marines. Each school is a special training division, though they all serve together in mixed units. They have regiments, but that's not how they're divided up into specializations. The schools of teachings are. Some are taught more in stealth and lore, and so on the tabletop that reflects in making them harder to hit, so they have higher saving rolls. Or in the case of, or maybe there's a school that teaches them better katana fighting, but teaches them, but because of that specialization, they have worse accuracy with their guns, so it's a much higher roll to land a hit with your gun, yeah, etc., etc., etc. There are factions that alter that, and they're also, each one has special abilities that are unique to those sub factions, which I really don't have any good examples off the top of my head without my notes to share in that regard. I gave like the special rule I shared about the Rathan. That was specialized for one of the clans. That wasn't all of them. Not Rith's clan. That was shit. Crap. What clan was that? So many names. Oh, well, point is that's an example of a specialist ability. Not all Rathan can do that, like, explosive, close range explosive wave attack. It's only a specific clan, but again, the name's not coming. It's not Rith's. Rith's special, one of Rith's special abilities for his clan is it gives them a bonus. It gives them a bonus in melee. And additionally, it gives them a bonus in melee, and they also have a bonus in intimidation for, you know, causing like lower morale rolls, or causing the enemy faction to have to roll morale for like every single unit within a certain range of Rith or one of Rith's underbosses / lieutenants. So there are different special abilities and stat differences provided by sub factions within each faction. Like, and with the Helsings as well, like they have different regiments as well. Like they have the Vanguard, they have the Assault Helsings. Well, those are actually categories of Helsing, really. The actual regiments. For example, a regiment. Remember the number? I don't remember the name. The name. Come on, it was there. Oh, it was there. Hold on. Helldrakes. Okay, there we go. There's a subdivision of the Helsings, one of their regiments that trains specifically on a volcanic planet, and I'm trying to remember their special ability, but right. They have a special ability called Inflagrate or Inflaguate. It's a weird word. I had to look up a thesaurus, but it's a word that basically means to self-immolate. So they light themselves on fire, and every turn they lose like a third their health. So within three turns, the one that did that to themselves dies. But during that time, while they're on fire, if they're within melee range of another unit, that unit will take damage over time. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I know it was an absolute joy talking to you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem.
But I think I've been hogging enough time, and I have work tomorrow. So, but thank you so much for having me.
Yes, thank you, Kyle. Self-conflagration. That's the word, actually. I was trying to remember it.
But take care, man. Have a good one.
Yeah, you too.
Bye.
Bye. Other different bloodlines for the vampires. There's not really different bloodlines, not in terms of how there is in the lore. Like there's different bloodlines for like the nobles of the sovereignty, but there's not for the Helsings. The Helsings are all cloned from basically a vat of artificial DNA mixed with some actual DNA donated to it towards the beginning of the Empire when the Empress first took over. When they were first conceptualizing the super soldiers of the Hellsings. But there's no unique bloodlines. All of their unique traits for their sub-factions are derived from where they train. And it's not like a chapter. They don't have an identity like that. Where you train, you do end up with that regiment for life. Like, they don't like switch around anybody. So effectively they act kind of like chapters. But they, officially speaking, they do mix and mash with others on a whim. And as I said before, all Hellsings serve with Jackals. Like, they're not kept separate. They work directly together. They support one another. Every battle that fields 1,000,000 Jackal will have at least 30 Hellsings backing them throughout the war. And that usually that come from usually it's logistically speaking, but sometimes it is relation. Like, there is one regiment of Hellsings that is very closely connected with a specific regiment of Jackals, despite the fact that logistically they're nowhere near one another. The world that they both train on aren't close by to one another, but they fought together in some pretty shady shit, and they created a rapport that has caused them to lay down their lives for one another very regularly, and fight together even more so. Yeah, in the lore, in terms of vampire houses, that only affects like the politics of like the nobility. There are different vampire houses and different nobles amongst the classes. The nobles are not part of the direct advisory to the Empress. Your bloodline is not the biggest factor to her. Your usefulness is. However, there is that game of politics though. Like, the council they're not like they are advisors. They're not the rulers. Like, they don't issue edicts without direct permission from the Empress. The nobles, on the other hand, do actually have a little bit of shady shit with how they affect war efforts and stuff. Like, if they have a vested interest in a specific territory, they will influence the higher authority of a particular regiment of Jackals or Hellsings to provide extra support to a world that's not necessarily in major danger, just because it's got a minor threat nearby. So they'll have the Hellsings on their behalfs. It's that kind of a thing. Like, they politically fuck with stuff because they do have their families do have debts owed by the Empress for past favors, or they just simply have great military history in their own family. So with their own reputation, they're able to influence that stuff. And the Empress allows it, not only because it keeps them in line and prevents a civil war that's just going to be annoying to her, but also just simply allowing it to happen garners some favor for her own necessities from the nobles' assets. So there's that politics in the lore, but in terms of the effect in the game, there's really nothing like that. It's all regimented. Yeah, they're more military. As of how you are thinking of the game system right now, how are you thinking about hoeing? Hoeing about hoeing. What? Think about having? Is that what you're trying to ask? Think about having about... No, having about, that doesn't make sense either. Doing? Are you thinking about doing about... No, that doesn't make sense either. Are you thinking about... I'll just ignore the hoeing. About the turnaround system. I am thinking about it, yes. Or as for how, If you're asking for a full breakdown, the current prototype right now is there is phases of each round. The first round is decided. They can do like a coin toss if they prefer, but like roll a d6 and whoever gets the higher number can decide if they want to go first or second. I like that from the games I play, so I think keeping that is sensible. And then the phases are gonna be cookies. I just realized that's what she dropped off. Sorry. This smell started to emanate, and I was like... But as for the rounds, it's going to be split into... Right now, the current build is there is a deployment phase at the beginning of the game for both players, obviously. And after that, they roll to see who goes first in turns. And then the standard build of like the average round will look like... You'll start with a morale phase if you lost any units from the previous engagement. And how that works in the current idea how that works is each unit has a morale stat. The morale stat basically reflects like the likelihood they're going to retreat. And if that unit is in a squad, if they lost units in that squad, for every unit lost, you roll a d6, and if your d6 lands, if you have a number that's lower than their morale stat, then they're safe. Like you didn't go above their morale, you didn't like go past what their fortitude is the idea. So they hold their ground. If you roll above that number, they run, and you lose that unit. And you would roll that for every... you would roll that... If it's a squad format, you'd roll that once, and that would represent the roll for like the whole squad. Not that they would all run, but if you fail it, you only lose one unit. It's a full turn system. Oh, that was your ass. Yes, it's a turn system. I thought you were asking for a breakdown of how it worked. And I figured with all their bioengineering abilities, there might be some room for some monsters to crawl out of the test tube and tear some stuff up. With their genetic stuff, there is that, kind of. I believe I mentioned this a little bit about their lore. The Hellsings were created to deal with the, names. So many things I gotta remember. And I'm too lazy to find it in my notes. I think I called them blood beats, didn't I? Sounds right. I'll go with that for now. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But you got the blood beats, which came out from drinking artificial blood. And those things are in the Hellsings. They are in... Well, they're not really in the... They're in the Sovereignty as a whole. Both the Jackal armies and Hellsing dedicated armies can field them, and it makes sense lore-wise. But the blood... You do have the blood beat monsters, which... I really can't visually describe them very well. They're... Think of a human being that just got ripped apart from the inside out and then got mutated into this big fucking pus ball of monstrous bloodlust. That's as far as I can like go with. Like I really have no good like verbal description of like what a blood beat looks like. But they're fucked up. They are amongst the Hellsings. But I've already just, as for other than them, there's really no monsters. The Sovereignty doesn't really support, like they value the human form, so they want to maintain that. They also value their sanity, you can't hold yourself, you can't hold your nobility above others if you're not smart enough to do so. So they value their intelligence and they value their human form, their human-esque form. They don't see themselves as human anymore, but they see that template as important. So they don't go out of their way to make monsters. They would rather, if they need a big, intimidating thing, they will make a mech. Even though they dedicate less research and less effort to it, they will put that out there. But the blood beats are just something that happened that they know how to make, so they still make them. They still use them. But it's nothing too crazy. The only other thing that's like animal-like that they use is there's a native hound creature that's native to their homeworld, and that is native to Mordred, which they do implement in battle. I'm still in the stage of I don't know if I want to implement them as a fast attack unit because I don't have that as a category, but I know like the fast attack in the sense of like how they are executed in battle, like having a fast attack in the sense of like an infantry unit like that or not. But there is a hound that they do use in the lore in battle that is native to their home planet of Mordred, and they're basically these large three-tailed dogs that are very vicious, very fast, and very big. Typically, they're trained and used by Helsings, not always by Jackals. There is one Jackal commander known as Silent Krieg. GW doesn't own Krieg. It's a German word. I'm using it. Yes. And Krieg is a bit of a psycho. He trained with Helsings in his unit when he was a younger Jackal, and his unit got completely torn apart during the Unification War. Or, sorry, during the I'm kind of calling it the Reunion War right now. And the attempt was each faction kind of wanted to unify the other ones underneath their banner a little bit, except the Warborn. Warborn really didn't want to unify. They just wanted to defeat the other two. The Terran Republic just kind of defended themselves. They were planning on conquering more of that sector of space. So whether there's a lot there. I can go into that for lore. Point is, there are, stick to the question because I'm going to go on a tangent here. I did that all stream. But the point is, they do have those hounds, those dogs. I just don't know if I'm going to implement them on the tabletop. If I do, and even if I don't first edition, that doesn't stop me from doing it in later edition if I can fit them in balancing wise. Other than that, they stick to the human form. So they have the blood beats and they have the hounds, which they do genetically enhance the hounds. Native to their planet, they're already big and vicious, but they genetically mutate them further to make them more deadly. Outside of that, they just have the standard variations amongst the Helsings. You have the standard Helsing that is born out of the test tubes. You have Bulwarks, which Bulwarks are Helsings they're genetically altered to have a much denser, thicker bone structure. They're given an extra lung, so they have 3 lungs, and they are big. They basically just bulk them up. They make their muscles denser and have tighter fibers. They give them thicker and bigger bones, and they do all that while they're alive and conscious. So you already go from being a 7'5" killing machine to being an 8'2" bigger, tougher killing machine with the risk of going through the numbing, which is an affliction that affects Bulwark Helsings, which makes them lose all emotion and feeling. Like, you could tase them and they would feel absolutely nothing. Shoot them in the leg, bite them. Yeah, they physically sense that they have pain, but they don't actually feel agony. They also feel no emotions, though. They feel no fear, no love, no affection. Bulwarks are completely devoid of any of that in battle. They save and protect people on a basis. What the fuck? I think that's a bot. Anyway. That threw me off. Welcome. That. I'm not reading that out loud. Welcome. How are you? Hey, Arctican. Yeah, where was I? Yeah, with the bulwarks, they just go through the numbing, potentially. Not all of them do. Most do, though. The process of expanding your body like that while you're alive, even for a Helsing, is an immense amount to deal with. So, they quite often become just this big killing machine. Trolls are weird, man. Kind of crazy? Yeah. Well, Krieg is the only example. Silas is the only example of a Jackal commanding a unit of the Mordred Hounds, and he has no fear of them whatsoever. One of the big things with the Hounds of Mordred is that they sense fear, and if something is scared of them, even remotely, they will not serve it. It doesn't matter if you have it in a cage, doesn't matter how much you tase it, doesn't matter how much you beat it into submission. They don't take nothing lying down. So in the case of the Hounds, they do not submit to any. They don't see anything that fears them, even a little bit, as an alpha. They don't see anything that doesn't. If you fear it at all, they will not submit to you. So that's why no Jackals really ever have Mordred Hounds amongst their commanding units. Only Helsings really can control them, because they genuinely don't fear them. Because they're actual smaller dogs by comparison to them, whereas they look like a giant fucking lion to a standard near. I got a minute. Cool, nice. But yeah, that's kind of what I was going at with that. Silas is the only example of someone who's just like, I don't give a fuck. I'm not scared of you. You do what I say. And the Hounds actually obey him. He does not fear, despite the fact that, again, to a Helsing, these are just like big dogs, but to a Jackal, they're a bit bigger than just a big dog. It's like a cougar, or even slightly bigger than that. Like they're huge Hounds. So you have even the slightest bit of tenseness around them, fear around them. If you give them a look like you're not in charge, they will not submit. They will fight. They will die before they obey any kind of conditioning. So, yeah, he's the only commander that is just a normal Jackal amongst the sovereignty. He's the only standard crypta that can get these Hounds to completely obey him without him really having done any conditioning to them. Like, he's a Chad, I guess is the meme way to put it. He's such a Chad that dogs listen to him. That's the most I can do. But yeah. So yeah, you got the bulwarks, you got the standard Helsings, and some of the Vanguard do get genetically enhanced, but not typically in the same degree as bulwarks. The Vanguard Helsings, if they're given enhancements at all, it's typically to their pain receptors. It's also done to give them. They do increase their muscle density. They do some things to give them higher survivability, but overall, yeah, they're not really disdained too differently from a standard Hellsing. It's mostly training and experience for the Vanguard. I'll take one more question. Then I was expecting this to be an hour long. We're at the 2 hours and 20-minute mark. So one more question, and then we'll wrap up. How's that sound? Gundam mix, yes or no? Which faction? If you're talking about the whole game, yes. Sovereignty? No. Well, hold on. Gundam mechs are the ones that actually look human, right? Like they're given a head, hand, like 5-fingered hands and shit. If that's the case, kinda. I meet you halfway. If we're talking more mech warrior, there's more of those mechs. Most of the mechs in Warglaive are much closer to that. There are, however, a few that are full like head, 5-fingered hands and shit. There are a couple. Not as in individuals, but a couple types that are like that. Let's see how much loss you're on. Alright, guys. So yeah, Warglaive is back under work. I'm working on it right now. Still writing the first book. I don't know what will be done first. The models are not currently being worked on, but when my new job gets back underway and I have the money, sculpts will get back underway, and I'll keep you guys appraised of that. Hopefully, once everything's back up and running, including concept art, I can start doing the monthly updates I was doing on the Warglaive channel, which all the Warglaive news will be primarily on the Warglaive channel. The only reason I didn't stream this there is I know that a lot of people who are looking at the Warglaive project who are interested still have not subscribed over there. And even if you are, I don't know, like it's been a while since I uploaded or streamed over there, so I don't know if the notifications would even go out. But yeah, all updates are primarily going to be, well, not primarily, they're going to be on the Warglaive channel. So keep your eyes out for that. I will keep you guys appraised, and as soon as everything's back up and running, I can actually start making those monthly update videos for you guys. And who knows, maybe we can get the first edition ready to go, at least in a rules standpoint, within the next six months, give or take. It might even be earlier than that. I'm just giving myself a lot of time. But who knows, we might have a working rule set soon. But the minis are going to take a while. Like, those take time, especially since I'm not doing everything full time. I can't afford to still right now, and when I get my job back with the Navy, I still won't be doing it full time, because I'll have a 40-hour-a-week job that demands my attention. But yeah, at least it won't be off ice. So, yep. Oh my God, the bots today, man. Anyway, have a fantastic evening, everybody. Thank you guys for checking in. Thank you guys for checking the update. And thank you for your questions. Have a great night.